where they'll actually be officiating at this ceremony. Now we see that this will facilitate actually the construction of the road network that is from Uganda to Beni Butembo. Beni Butembo. We must also understand that yes, Uganda does a lot of business trade with Congo, and that is Eastern Congo. And Eastern Congo very much depends on the ports of Tanga, Dar es Salaam, and also Mombasa. And most of the goods that come through the port of Mombasa to DR Congo pass through Uganda, and therefore that's why it is very, very important for the infrastructure development between the two countries. And we must also know that DRC Congo is among the countries that have applied to join the East African Community. So this is also some kind of a foreshadow telling us exactly what it's going to be like. That is after they have fully been accepted in the community. Now, the Eastern DRC Congo in the past, just because of having poor infrastructure, was always a hub for the insurgents or people who are there to destabilize the region. And therefore, we remember in 1996 when ADF attacked from that very side, and UPDF had to really follow them and flush them out. And they were taking advantage, of course, of the poor infrastructure there to cause perhaps insecurity in the region. But with infrastructure development, it means that therefore the place is going to be safe, among others, for both those who are doing businesses and also for those who would wish to visit DRC Congo or Uganda as tourists. Now, in the borders, like borders of the border of Lubiriha Kasindi is known for the supply of vitenge, of course, and jean trousers for the youth. But we must also know that much of the goods, or most of the goods that come in through Mombasa, pass through Kampala, Mbarara, Ofotpotro, Kasese, then to Mpondwe, and then to DRC Congo. So this is strengthening the relationship between the two countries, that is DRC and Uganda. Yes, since independence, the relation with DRC Congo has always not been bad, but we see under President Museveni and Felix Tshisekedi of DRC, the relationship is being taken to another level where we are sharing infrastructure development and also other kind of cooperation. Mtazamaji mpendwa wa UBC TV, na tunaendelea kuonyesha, unaendelea kutazama sherehe ambayo inafanyika katika wilaya ya Kasese katika mpaka wa Bwera au wa Mponde Lubiriha, ambapo maraisi wawili, Rais Yoweri Kaguta Museveni wa Uganda na Rais Felix Tshisekedi wa Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo, ambao kweli ndo wageni rasmi katika sherehe ya leo ambayo inaimarisha ushirikiano kati ya nchi hizi mbili. Na ushirikiano huu ni wa kuwa na miundombinu ya pamoja, hasa ujenzi wa barabara ambayo itajengwa kutoka pale Bwera ikielekea maeneo ya Beni na Butembo. Mtazamaji mpendo wa UBC TV, nataka nikuelezee kwamba Uganda na DRC au Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo ni nchi mbili ambazo zimekuwa zikifanya biashara pamoja. Na isitoshe tunaona kwamba mashariki mwa Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo, watu wengi pale unaona kwamba kwa ajili ya huduma za kijamii huwa wanategemea sana Uganda. Kwa hivyo ujenzi wa barabara utaendeleza ule ushirikiano kiasi kwamba pale itakuwa rahisi kwa wao kupata hizo huduma kutoka huku Uganda. Yes, Dear viewer, once again, you welcome you on Still 20 BC TV and looking at the groundbreaking ceremony. Now, let's look at Congo. Congo is one of the largest countries on the African continent, but largely Eastern Congo, when it comes to social services, they depend on Uganda. You realize that people around Beni actually rely very much on Bwera Hospital when it comes to treatment. They always cross over to Bwera, and in most cases, Congo is one of the countries in Africa that has the poorest road network, and the construction of this road from Uganda to Congo will actually reduce on that. Though they have developed the air transport as compared to the road transport, but you find that much of the goods that go to Congo, especially from Mombasa, they use the road system. Now, when you look at most transporters, they will also tell you that, of course, when it comes to Uganda, the roads are a little bit fair. But when it goes to the side of Congo, they've always had issues, problems as and when they are really transporting goods and services in that part of Eastern Congo. Therefore, this is going to more than facilitate trade between the two countries. Yeah, anytime from now, as you can see, as you can see, the security is tightened because the two heads of states actually in the area that is at the Pondwe-Lubiriha border or Bwera border, where they will be officiating at the groundbreaking ceremony. So this is part of Pan-African Brotherhood being exercised today, where we have really to share infrastructure development, also to come together as a region so that we can see what is best for the border communities. Now, the construction of the road is not only going to facilitate trade, but it is also going to facilitate peace and security, because now it means that in case of any insurgency, it will always be easier for the troops to be moved from one point to another. That is also on the social aspect. Also, it means that now people will easily move and visit their relatives within a short time. Unlike where people traveling from Butembo to actually Kasese or to Beni, because of the poor road network, whenever it would rain, people would take close to a week, a distance that would have taken them ordinarily around 4 to 5 hours. They end up taking days because of lack of transport or because of the poor road system, and especially when it rains, you find that the roads become extremely impassable. Mtazamaji mpendwa, bado tuko katika hii sherehe ya leo ambapo tunao kwamba ujenzi wa miundombinu hii hasa barabara utaimarisha si masuala ya biashara tu, bali pia kuimarisha masuala ya usalama, masuala ya kijamii na vile vile masuala ya kisiasa. Tukumbuke kwamba hata pia nchini Kongo huwa wanapiga kura, lakini wakati mwingine unaona kwamba maeneo kama hayo, kwa sababu ya barabara kuwa mbaya, upigaji wa kura unatatizika. Vile vile masuala ya afya pia tunaona kwamba watu wanatatizika sana. Kwa masuala ya kiafya tunaona kwamba watu katika maeneo hayo ya Kongo wanategemea sana hospitali ya Bwera ambayo imejengwa katika wilaya ya Kasese, katika mji wa Bwera au pale katika town council ya Bwera Lubiriha. Kama mnavyoona, usalama umeimarishwa, tukiwa tunawasubiria marais hawa wawili ambao watakuwa wanahutubia nchi zetu mbili, yani Uganda na Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo. Na sherehe ya leo ni ya kipekee, na kwa sababu wakati wote tunatarajia Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo kujiunga na Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki, kwa sababu ni miongoni mwa nchi mbili ambazo tayari zimeshaomba kuwa wanachama wa jumuiya hiyo. Na ikumbukwe kwamba watu wengi wanaopatikana katika mpaka wa Uganda na Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo, utakuta kwamba ni watu ambao wanajamii ambazo zinapatikana kwa nchi hizo mbili, kuanzia Kisoro hadi Koboko. Utakuta kwamba wilaya za mpakani zina watu wa jamii zinazopatikana katika hizo nchi mbili. Mathalan, utaona Wafumbira, ukija utaona Wakonzo ambao kule wanaitwa Wanandi, lakini ile ni jamii yote ya Waira. Pia tutaona watu wa jamii ya wa Alur na vile vile Lugbara. Wote utakuta kwamba wanapatikana Uganda na pia wanapatikana Congo. Now when you look at Congo and Uganda, DRC Congo and Uganda, the border districts actually have people who fall on the both sides. They are in Uganda and they are in DRC. For example, right from Kisoro up to Koboko, you'll find that you have the Kakwa who are in both Uganda and Congo. You have the Lugbara who are both in Uganda and Congo. You have the Alur who are both in Uganda and Congo. You have the Bakonzo, the other side they are called Wanandi. Of course, that is the Ira community. They are on both sides. We also have the Bafumbira, that is in Kisoro. We also have the Bachiga in Kanungu. You've had Honorable Chris Bariomus once in a while saying that yes, they have their people in Congo. So that is how the border community is. You find that they are on both sides. Therefore, the development of a joint infrastructure projects is one way of bringing people together, is one way of facilitating the integration of integrating the border communities. Actually, the best way of integrating the border communities is by coming up with such infrastructure that comes from one country to the other. Now, in Congo, you find that Congo is one of the countries on the continent that actually has the poorest road network. Yes, though they have developed air transport, but when it comes to their roads are very terrible, and this is now a step in solving that crisis, in solving the transport crisis. Now, like President Museveni has always put it, that if the problems on the Nile can be solved, if there is a way water from DRC Congo is tapped so that it can flow into Lake Victoria, then the crisis of saying that the Egyptians have a monopoly over the River Nile waters will be solved, because as President Museveni has always put it, that Congo has enough water to actually facilitate development on the African continent. So that is how rich Congo is, but the biggest challenge has always been infrastructure development. Now let's look at since independence, the people that have governed Congo. Yes, we saw their first president being Joseph Kasavubu, but he was a ceremonial president, and the executive prime minister then was Patrice Lumumba. Upon the assassination of Patrice Lumumba, Mobutu took over in a military coup, becoming the first executive president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, of course ruling for over 30 years, and then he was succeeded by by Laurent Desire Kabila, because Kabila comes to power after a successful rebellion in Eastern Congo that overthrew the government of Mobutu Sese Seko Kukuabanga Butu Seko Kukungwendo was a banger. Then we also see that after Laurent Desire Kabila, we had his son Joseph Kabila, of course, who came in after after Laurent Desire Kabila was assassinated. And just 3 years back, we saw Felix Tshisekedi is also coming in and being the first president of DRC to having been elected to power, and also the first peaceful transition where we saw a sitting president handing over to his successor. So that was the first peaceful transition they have ever had. So one of our own is in Mpondwe, one of our own is in Bwera Mpondwe, that is Bernard Yiga, and he will be coming live actually to tell us exactly how the situation is like. So anytime from now, I'll be handing over to Bernard Yiga. Okay, I beg your pardon. Bernard Yiga will be coming in at 1 p.m. to tell us what the situation is like at Mpondwe as the two presidents prepare to address us and also officiate or preside over the groundbreaking ceremony for road infrastructure between Uganda and DRC. Now, in recent years, Uganda has actually come up with such joint ventures with neighboring countries. We have the pipeline construction with Tanzania, which we saw the president the other time flying to Dar es Salaam to finalize the agreement so that the project can also kick off, can start. So this is not the first time we've had such ventures with our neighbors, especially under the NRM regime, because it's a perception that once we have joint infrastructure development, it is one way of facilitating, accelerating the integration economically, socially, and that's what is very, very important. That once there's economic integration, it means that trade among the people is made easier, but also the relations between the border communities are also budget conference. Yes, for now we take you back to Statistics House for the budget conference, but as and when the two presidents have arrived in Mpondwe, so far President Museveni is already in Mpondwe, but as and when President Felix Tshisekedi arrives, then we shall be taking you back to Kasese, Bwera, Mpondwe for the groundbreaking ceremony. I take you back to Statistics House for the budget conference. Stay tuned to UBC TV. Amanda Cole, Amazima.
Thank you so much, Solomon. And since I'm taking the floor for the first time, I would like to thank URA, Ministry of Finance, and all the other partners for this partnership. I think it's really, really commendable to bring on board the civil society and the private sector. Because those are the final consumers of the policies which come out of government. Maybe I would like to start with the emphasizing. We also have a debt crisis, and we need to work on those crises together. We have to solve them together. The issue of the tax policy is critical because government needs resources to be able to provide goods and services and infrastructure. We have had the tax proposals, which are commendable because government is also running a tightrope. The economy is facing challenges, yet government has to get resources. And this is where we need to be able to be careful when it comes to the outflows of resources, especially the issue of tax incentives. I'm not saying right from the beginning that tax incentives are bad per se, because they are good to be able to spur, to encourage investors to go into certain sectors. My worry is the issue of value for money. This isn't the first time that government is providing tax incentives, but we don't see the evidence for value for money. That this company was given tax incentives, that this is how they have delivered. The conditions James has pointed out were clear. Sourcing 70% of local materials, which is good because that increases production and productivity and gives income to the people producing the materials. Issues of the wage bill and employing Ugandans. But we see most of the companies which employ Ugandans, we don't have a minimum wage. They are paid very, very poorly. Again, we don't see that those conditionalities are adhered to. So at the end of the day, even the issue of transparency, who is getting these incentives, So we need to do much more around the issue of tax incentives so that we can be able to get value for money. What we are proposing, that instead of talking about, for example, 10 years of income tax, why don't you give 5, so that after 5 years you can be able to evaluate and see whether we are getting value for money and maybe give more incentives. So that's our position when it comes to the issue of incentives. The sectors are too many. I doubt whether all those sectors as read out are really strategic, because we need to be clear that as an economy, this is where we are going. These are the strategic sectors. But I don't see that. The list continues every year, going up, becoming longer and longer, and you wonder where exactly, where we'll end up. Maybe all the sectors will be there. Maybe allow me, since we are talking about issues around the outflows, because for us tax incentives is one of those outflows of resources, which we really, really need, because we haven't as yet seen value for money. Maybe I would like to talk about other areas which we Our position here is that, it's interesting when you understand the explanation. Where government is coming from to put that tax on table. But when you look at the issue of data, again, it's taxing the consumers, not the businesses. When you look at the COVID pandemic, what it has brought on table is the expansion of the digital economy. The digital economy is expanding. And I think government should build capacity. You are the and the tax policy should build the capacity to tax the economy, the digital economy, tax the businesses instead of going to, for us, the consumers. What I know about taxing the digital economy is not sometimes it's beyond us as Uganda because it's a global debate. OECD, has a hand in it. We need to negotiate that. But again, we also need to build the capacity on how to tax the digital economy. Because most of the international tax laws even about taxing physical businesses, not those online businesses. So I think instead of tax
Well, I think you raise a very critical issue around the growing digital economy, and I don't know if URA is tapping into that space. I think what the COVID-19 pandemic brought, just like Jane was saying, it brought innovations. And indeed, in the budget speech, government was talking about growing the digital economy. Just to find out from you before we go back to Mama Victoria, is URA tapping into the growing digital e-commerce, online commerce, James?
Yes, we are developing mechanisms of tapping into e-commerce. That is an area that is focused to us in terms of taxing that sector. So we are really looking into that sector in terms of taxation.
But have you provided for it in the tax regimes for the next financial year? Or you're still looking into it?
In terms of tax regime?
You're still developing capacity, right?
Yes, the tax regime already caters for that sector.
Okay. Did you want to come back on issues of taxes?
I just wanted to come back to the issue of, I know government is building capacity, and there are also other organizations globally and on the continent that's doing that. But I also wanted to raise the issue again on the issue of, on the outflow of resources. Because if the economy has contracted, then it means we need to look around either new areas to tax or to stem the outflow of the little resources we have. There is the issue, I know government is working on this, and we just want to re-emphasize that it could be done faster. The issue of double taxation agreements, we have so many of them. We have signed with a number of countries like Mauritius, Netherlands, where our money, somebody says I'm paying in Mauritius, yet Mauritius is a tax haven. So those are some of the issues we really smuggling across the border, especially on the Kenya border. But we also, the issue of tax harmonization regionally, especially the issue of tax incentives, is important to avoid the race to the bottom. because we compete for investors. We give tax incentive 10 years, another one gives 15. At the end of that day, it's the investors who go home laughing all the way to the bank. I don't know whether we'll get more time to talk about the economy, because when we talk about reviving the look. And I think we need to interrogate whether that parish model will be able to revive the economy, increase incomes at household level, but also at national level. Because even the national coffers are empty. They are half empty now. That's why we producing according to standards. But when you look at trade today, there are so many markets out there. In fact, even the budget speech talked about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the big market. All the countries have signed that Continental Free Trade Area apart from Eritrea. So all those markets are there. We have the regional market, we have AGOA, we have EU market, but all those are potential markets. But we'll continue talking about markets. Markets are there. But the missing link, which I hope the parish model can address, is the link between production and the market. And the market has to be specific. We should stop talking about the EU market, because today the biggest challenge is that our products are either rejected in those markets or we don't even utilize the markets. We have seen our vegetables in the EU market, our maize in the Kenya market, our sesame, So we need to produce for a specific market in terms of quality, in terms of quantity. That's why when we are planning, and I hope the parish model does this, we should plan from the market. Because what we have So we work backwards from an identified market, work backwards to ensure that you adhere, you are compliant to the requirements, the standard, the quality, the quantity of that market. And maybe lastly, when the president was talking about the fish maw, what I liked most about that was the fact that he said he's going to talk to the Chinese president to reduce the taxes on the fish maw going to China. That should be the role of government. Government should negotiate, but also the political arm, the executive, should negotiate markets. Thank you.
Conclusions, and then Jane, and then we wrap it up. Yes, James.
Okay, thank you, Solomon. I just wanted to react to some of the issues Jane has pointed out in terms of the evidence for value for money for those who are benefiting from the incentives and the transparency. We are working on an expenditure framework that is going to assist us to address some of those concerns. And most likely effective the next financial year, we should be using it to look out to all those who have been given the exemptions and whether there is a value for money. And for this case, you don't have to wait for even 5 years. If someone is not complying in a year, someone is disqualified and subsequently made to pay for what he did cater for. Then In terms of taxing their e-commerce, of course, the telecoms, those ones are heavily taxed in terms of their income tax and so on. In addition, they also pay license fees of about 2% of their gross income. However, we also have to look at the players who are using online transactions in terms of doing their business. That is an area that we're also looking at in terms of how to get those players that you can't physically find anywhere, but they are transacting online. Yeah, thank you.
Interesting ones. I was just a bit worried about the $50 million investment bare minimum for manufacturers to take advantage of some of these tax incentives. It's quite high. I don't know how many people have business manufacturing initial capital of about investment capital of $50 million. I feel like you're just saying, there is this opportunity, but, you make the conditions so tight for people to take advantage. So it comes off as a lie. In my view, and it may be wrong, but I was wondering how many manufacturers have businesses worth capital investment of $50 million. James, that I was just tickling you a bit, but it's okay. I will keep it. Let me go back to Ma'am Victoria Sechitoleko to wrap it up. The URA and indeed government is saying that they have put some of the incentives. They have tried their best to help the private sector survive through the COVID-19 pandemic and different businesses by putting different incentives and also making it easy for the private sector to pay their taxes. Especially, you mentioned in your earlier remarks, ma'am, about the digital, the electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing and the digital tracking solutions that URA has come up with. And you are not really so excited about it like I had thought. Maybe you had said you didn't want to talk about it, but maybe you can talk about it and how the private sector is really perceiving this. And are you excited about the tax incentives that government is putting in place, Madam Victoria?
The incentive for the private sector in as far as the COVID pandemic is concerned. Last year, when the pandemic was at its peak, there was a lot of talk about how to support companies to survive COVID. The only thing we have gotten until today is that people were given a break where the government requested the bank to give companies a break until September 2020. So until now, we have not received anything that really supports companies to survive or revive. In fact, when many people who had struggling businesses because of COVID went to Uganda Development Bank, Uganda Development Bank put it clearly in writing that their business is not to deal with struggling businesses. They are a business themselves, they are a bank, they lend to those ongoing businesses, not struggling businesses. So until now, those businesses which were struggling in 2020, they are even worse off now, and we are still waiting for those incentives. That is one. Two, like you had, most of these incentives start well above our heads. When somebody who is a Ugandan, sometimes I wonder where we raise these children. When somebody who is a Ugandan sits in a Ugandan chair, in a Ugandan office, a government place, and starts telling you that if you have got investment of $50 million, what are we talking about? Then three, when Madam Jane Nalunga raises the issue of digital, the cost of doing anything digital, and then the respondent says, oh, you see, for e-commerce, we are not talking about e-commerce. For me, I expected you to talk about digital government. Because right now we have been told that government wants to go digital. So some of us are really sitting here at the edge of our chairs, hoping and wishing that Parliament will start meeting digitally, that even the Cabinet will start meeting digitally, because that will cut all sorts of costs, and that we who are at the parishes will be supported in order to go digital. But what is the use of a new language if most of the people you are in charge of don't speak their language? Most of us, when you say go online, we don't even know where that line is. So that is my ask. My ask is, you Mr. Taxman, please speak a language we understand. Do business in a way that we can be in tandem with you. Like I said, we do not fail to pay taxes because we don't want to, but because you come to us and speak what we used to call Ludicha when I was young. When you couldn't understand the language, you said you spoke Ludicha. So you are stop talking to us in Ludicha, speak to us in the language we understand. If you are going digital, support us all to go digital. So make sure that when it comes to taxing, when it comes to talking about the cost of data, you are on our side, because otherwise you will leave us behind, and certainly we shall not pay taxes. Finally, as I said earlier, for us in the private sector have got only 3 acts, and the first one is please decisively deal with corruption. I know you are URA and you tell us that it is a job of government to deal with corruption, but I know government is in here, you are part and part of government, so please deal decisively with URA because it is interrupting our work and not making it easy for us to pay those taxes. Secondly, now that we have gone with this policy, if we go with the tax of digitalizing everything, let us be consistent. Finally, when we choose where to invest and we say this is the priority and this is the priority, can that priority be made to match what the priorities of the private sector are? For example, if you talk about putting money into energy, can you aim at making electricity cost about 5 cents instead of what it is costing now? That is one. 2, when you talk about making roads, can you please mind those feeder roads? Because right now, the cost of distribution of what we produce as farmers is 45%. The cost is 45% of the total cost. You produce, then 45% just goes into distribution. So please, when you work on you prioritize transport, please prioritize those roads which lead to us being able to evacuate whatever we produce. Then when you say that you are looking into the cost of credit to the SMEs, please let it be consistent in that when you go to a micro organization, it will go into a medium organization and it will go into a large organization. Make this a development process. Don't come and look after me when I'm a small woman in a small village, and the moment I become medium, you just judge me because I no longer fit where I was and I don't know where I'm going. In other words, can we be consistent when we hold the hand of these people who want to pay taxes? Be there and work with them, and when you talk about the tax incentives, explain them to them and apply them to us who are in the majority. The SMEs in Uganda are the majority, so please make whatever policy you are talking about apply to us. And I'll end with my usual request. Let us take another look at our education syllabus so that it is relevant. If Uganda is an agriculture country, let everybody understand about agriculture, appreciate about agriculture. If Uganda is becoming an industrialized country, we are all going into business, make sure that every child can understand what business is about. We don't have to know where the source of the Nile is or who discovered it. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mama Victoria Secheko. Thank you very much for your submissions. We really appreciate them. Thank you. And our time is fast spent. But I love how she concluded it. She said, you're giving incentives to the big boys. $50 million and above, $300,000 and above, and yet majority of the business sector is an SME. Instead of just providing some incentives for them to grow, you have set the bar so high, and therefore you're not helping the SMEs, which from the largest majority of it. Ma'am, thank you very much, Madam Victoria Secheleko, Vice Chairperson for Private Sector Foundation. Thank you, James Odongo from URA. James is the Acting Commissioner for Domestic Taxes. Jen, I'll give you 30 seconds because I had promised you that I would come back to you and you wrap it up. You have the last say at this.
Okay, thank you so much. One, I'll talk about, I will appreciate the issue of training and education. Let the people, the taxpayers, know what they are paying. Lastly, I think we need to rethink the economic policies. COVID has taught us that what we talk about, market forces, market demand, private sector led, it can't work anymore. And we saw it when State House went into transport. So we need to agree what should be the role of the state. We are talking about the parish model, but the pricing even of maize, even up to today, now, people are producing maize, the maize is in the garden, but they don't know how much they are going to get out of their maize, what the price is going to be. And that doesn't give any incentives to be able to adhere to, comply to any standards. So the whole issue is let us rethink our economic policies. Let us rethink the banking sector. Why should we borrow for onward lending when we can be able to have our own banks to mobilize resources? So going forward, we need to rethink the policies which help us to get out of a crisis. Can't be the same actions to help us rebuild the economy. It's like firefighting. You fight a fire, but when you are rebuilding the house, you have to use different policies, different strategies.
Jen Nalunga, Executive Director of Siatini. Let's give my panelists a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you, Ma'am, Madam Victoria Secheleko. Thank you, James Odongo. And thank you very much, Jen Nalunga, for being part of the conversation. And thank you for watching from wherever you've been watching. We've been live on Smart 24, BBS Telefina. We've been live on NBS Television, UBC, and URA TV. So a special thank you for watching this broadcast. My name is Solomon Serwanja. Coming up on the different TV stations is News at 1. Good afternoon.
This weekend on UBC.
Whoever said life on top was boring was a very short man. On this week's episode, GM Laura sets up an epic breakfast meal on top of the falls.
You know, not many people have actually been here. Not many people, because they just do the game drive, the boat ride, and then they don't get to see this. So it's always a really good experience for them.
Ranger guide George takes us around the oldest and largest park, Murchison Falls National Park, on a honeymoon walk, spotting some pretty interesting wildlife. A perfect balance between adventure and relaxation.
You see, a park is one of those nice places you can be. For me, I would call it a stress buster.
A stress buster?
Yes, because you're out there, you've been stressed, you have a lot of phone calls. Like if you're in Kampala, you know how Kampala looks.
Sinok Uganda Limited has organized the Sinok Oil and Gas Supply Development E-Conference 2021 under the theme Financing for Oil and Gas Contractors. The panelists will include Betty Namubiru, Manager National Content Petroleum Authority of Uganda, Henry Kamuntu, Sector Head Oil and Gas Stanbic Bank Uganda Limited, Matthew Chaligonza, National Content Manager Sinok Uganda Limited, Godfrey Mondoa, Head of Corporate Banking DFCU Bank, and Mogarura Emmanuel, the Chief Executive Officer Association of Uganda Oil and Gas Service Providers. It will be moderated by Tony Okao Otoa, the Chief Executive Stanbic Business Incubator Limited. The e-conference will be held on the 17th of June 2021 from 2 to 4 p.m. live on UBC TV and all its social media platforms.
Who is in the studio? Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We are coming to you live from Kasese district at Impondwe border between Uganda and Congo. And here we are only waiting for His Excellency Tshisekedi from Democratic Republic of Congo to join his Ugandan counterpart Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who arrived here at exactly noon. I'm joined by one of the officials who is engaged in this project and would like to know more about this project and how it is going to help the two countries. Sir, thank you so much for speaking to UBC TV. We would like to know you, and then we talk about this project. I'm holding for you the microphone.
Okay, no problem. My name is Samson Bagonza. I work with the Ministry of Works and Transport as the engineering chief. True, we are the implementers of this project from the government of Uganda side. This project is a road infrastructure improvement project. We are going to improve 3 roads that link Uganda to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The 3 roads which have been prioritized by the two countries are Kasindi, Mpondwe Kasindi at the border point here, yes, to Beni. That is the first road. That road is currently a gravel road. It's being used, but we are going to improve it to tarmac. Now, the length of that road is 80 kilometers. Now, the second road under this project is from Beni to Butembo. That is another 54 kilometers, currently a Maram road, but is going to be improved to tarmac. The third road in this project we are witnessing today at the groundbreaking is in the district, starts in the district of Kisoro. In Uganda, at a border point called Bunagana. So Bunagana is in Uganda. That's where the third road begins. It moves into Congo to the first point is called Rutsuro. Then from Rutsuro, it goes to Goma. Now that road is a long road of 89 kilometers. So the total length of road network that the presidents are going to break for today is 223 kilometers. Now this project is going to be implemented by a contractor called Dot Services Limited. It's a Ugandan-based construction company, but that's the company that was selected by the two governments and is the one going to implement the project. In terms of project cost, the cost estimate as we stand now is $330 million for all the 223 kilometers.
Kilometers all over from Chisoro to Bunagana.
Yes, and Kasindi to Beni to Butembo. Now, this money is going to be contributed by government of Uganda, 20%, which works out as $66 million. The government of the Democratic Republic of Congo is going to contribute $66 million also, which is another 20%. Then the contractor will mobilize the 60%, which works out as $200 million from private financing institutions, from private lenders to projects. Now, this money, you may say, but why is the contractor the one looking for this money? This money, it has been agreed by the three parties, the two governments and the contractor, that this money will be recovered by the contractor over a period of time through charging road tolls.
Road tolls in Uganda or in Congo?
All these roads are in Congo, so the tolls will be paid by the users of the roads in Congo. If you are a Ugandan going through the road, but in Congo, you will pay the tariff or the fees in Congo to the contractor who is operating this. So we estimate that within a period of about 15 to about 30 years, depending on the volume of traffic on these roads, this money will be collected over time. The contractor will recover that money, pay it back, and then hand over the project to DRC, to the government of DRC.
When should we expect this project to be completed that you're going to launch today, the whole project of the road construction?
In terms of estimates, we are looking at 3 to 4 years. We are expecting that by October 2025, all the tarmacking work will have been done. Now you might say, but this is a lot of work. It is not a lot of work because these are 3 road sections. The contractor will also be working at many fronts. He will not be working on one at a go. He will set up a construction unit on one road or construction units on one road, and they will be working at parallel with other units on other roads. So all work will be done concurrently such that it can be finished within that period, estimated to be varying from 3 to 4 years. Okay. Why we are saying varying from 3 to 4 years? We expect that the process of borrowing the 60% of the money by the contractor from private lenders, private financing institutions, will take some bit of time. It requires negotiations, and these negotiations will be supervised by the two governments. So that process is unpredictable, but it is the one we are saying it might take us a bit of time, but 3 to 4 years we shall be there.
Okay. We are seeing that today you're also going to launch this completed bridge here. How has been the situation before this bridge here, and how is it going to help the two countries in terms of trade?
If I can give you the history of this bridge, there was a concrete bridge here which was broken by a very heavy truck in 2008. The truck had timber on it. It was coming from the DRC side, and it broke the bridge. So when that bridge was broken, we replaced it with what we call a Bailey bridge, a temporary bridge, with concrete supports at the end and a steel structure in the middle. Now that structure, the Bailey bridge structure, served from 2008 up to last year in May.
And it collapsed?
But we knew that it was temporary. So before, in 2017, we started now with this one as the permanent one to replace the temporary one. Unfortunately, we had made it in such a way that the Bailey bridge would be a pedestrian bridge, and then this one would be used by vehicles. But last year in May, on 21st May, when this river flooded, it came and lifted the steel structure. The whole steel structure was lifted and it disappeared. You cannot even trace it downstream the river.
It was taken by the floods.
It was taken by the floods, and you cannot even see the steel. So fortunately, the concrete one was almost ready. So people switched over from the steel one to the concrete one. And there was no interruption in traffic flow, fortunately. Yeah.
One would ask, lastly from me, that why is the government of Uganda engaged in constructing roads inside the Congo? Is the Congo unable to construct its own roads? What is the genesis there?
No, the genesis is that we are beneficiaries.
Yes.
we equally benefit from those roads. These roads, once constructed, and more will be constructed. Once they are constructed, volume of trade will increase. If you came here on Friday, there is a marketplace. This is a marketplace on Friday. You cannot believe the volume. Now, when the movement on the other side is easy, the volume of trade will increase. The ways of business will also improve, because not all business is done through vehicles. There are some other methods of doing business. So ways of doing business will improve. Regional integration will improve. Our bilateral relations will improve. Security will improve, because now our security forces can move faster and more easily. So the benefits are many. So after all, we are just saying we shall contribute only 20%. Yes, but the benefits out of that 20% will be immense. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Bagonza, for choosing to speak to UBC TV. We shall engage you as the function goes on, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, we have been speaking to Engineer Bagonza from the Ministry of Works and Transport, and we are only waiting for His Excellency Tshisekedi from the Democratic Republic of Congo to arrive here and join his Ugandan counterpart, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, who arrived at exactly noon. So I'm getting back to studio, and we shall be getting more details as the function goes on.
I'm gonna wait on you. I'm gonna wait on you.
When anointing meets expectations, miracles are physical evidence of God's power. Pastor Sandra Bengana of the Road to Redemption Ministries invites you to fellowship with